Your Honor, I said, my hand shaking as I held up my phone. May I play a video of her from last night? The entire courtroom went silent. You could hear people breathing. The judge leaned forward in her chair, her glasses sliding down her nose. Across from me, my granddaughter, with her expensive suit and cruel smile, froze for just a second before folding her arms like she had nothing to fear. Only moments earlier, she had leaned toward me, her voice dripping with venom, and whispered words I will never forget. I'm going to take everything, you useless old hag. Nothing you do can stop me. She thought I was weak. She thought because my daughter was gone I had no fight left. But she didn't know what I had hidden in my purse. And in that moment, with the whole courtroom staring at me, I felt my heart racing as I prepared to press play. What was on that video would shock everyone. It would change everything. But before I tell you what happened next, let me go back to the beginning. Because for you to understand how an old woman like me ended up in a courtroom, accused of stealing my own daughter's inheritance, you need to hear the whole story. My name is Margaret Brown. I'm 74 years old, and I live in Savannah, Georgia, right here in the United States. I know most of you watching or listening to this are curious about my life, and I promise you, it's more dramatic than any movie you've ever seen. But before I begin, please subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you don't miss the next part of this story. And tell me down in the comments, where are you watching from? I really want to know. Now let's go back. The morning my daughter, Rebecca, died was the worst day of my life. Rebecca was my only child, and I raised her mostly on my own after my husband passed when she was just 5 years old. She grew into a beautiful, smart woman. But behind that beauty, there was always trouble. Men loved her, money followed her, and envy chased her like a shadow. When the call came from the hospital, my knees gave way. They told me it was an accident. A car crash. She didn't survive. I felt my world collapse. I remember lying on the kitchen floor, holding onto the phone like it could bring her back. Neighbors came running when they heard my screams. But the pain didn't end with her death. That was only the beginning. At the funeral, my granddaughter, Amelia, stood by the casket with no tears in her eyes. She was 22, cold as stone, and already whispering about money. She didn't even hug me. Instead, she asked, "So, Grandma, what happens to Mom's estate now?" That question cut deeper than the loss itself. I tried to hug her, but she pulled away. The people around us gave me pitying looks, but no one understood what was coming. Weeks later, I was served court papers. Amelia, my own flesh and blood, was suing me. She claimed I had stolen her inheritance, that I had taken money that was rightfully hers. She even brought in a lawyer who painted me as some greedy old woman trying to cling to wealth. But the truth was uglier than that. There was a man behind it all. His name was Francis Willand, a smooth-talking, silver-haired stranger who appeared right after Rebecca died. He claimed he had been close to her, that he knew all about her finances. But I knew better. Francis was a vulture. He whispered lies into Amelia's ear, feeding her hatred against me. He told her I had taken everything. He promised her he would help her win it back. I watched as Francis became the snake coiling around my granddaughter, squeezing her innocence until all that was left was greed. The first time I saw them together in court, I felt sick. He sat beside her, adjusting his tie, smirking at me like he had already won. Amelia wouldn't even look at me. She was lost to him. But I am not as weak as they thought. I kept my head down. I prayed. And when the nights were too dark, I cried. But I also watched. And I listened. And what I discovered about Francis, and what Amelia herself said one night when she thought no one was listening, would become my weapon. The courtroom was packed on the day of the hearing. Friends, neighbors, even people I didn't know came to watch. They whispered about me as I walked in with my cane. "That's the grandmother they say stole the inheritance," one man said. "She doesn't look like a thief," another whispered. The judge called the case. Lawyers spoke. Amelia smirked. Francis crossed his legs like a king on a throne. And then it happened. Amelia leaned toward me, her perfume sharp in my nose, her voice low and cruel. "I'm going to take everything. Nothing you do can stop me, you useless old hag." For a moment my hands trembled. My chest burned with pain. I thought of Rebecca, and I thought of how she would weep to see her daughter turn against me. But then I remembered what I had hidden. I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and raised it for everyone to see. Your Honor, I said, my voice steady now. May I play a video of her from last night? The judge raised her eyebrows. The crowd gasped. Francis sat up straighter. Amelia's smirk vanished. Because none of them knew what I had recorded. And the moment that video played would shake the entire courtroom. The judge leaned back in her chair, tapping her pen on the desk. Mrs. Brown, she said firmly. If this video is relevant, you may proceed. But be warned, the court does not take lightly to distractions. My heart thundered in my chest. With trembling fingers, I unlocked my phone. The courtroom fell into a silence so heavy it felt like the walls themselves were listening. I tapped play. The screen lit up, and suddenly Amelia's face filled the courtroom speakers. She was sitting in Francis's car laughing. Her voice was sharp, cruel, and every word she said cut through the room like a blade. I don't care if Grandma starves, Amelia sneered on the video. Francis, once this is done, I'll have the house, the money, everything. That old hag won't have a dime. And if she tries to fight back, we'll just call her crazy. No one believes old women anyway. Gasps filled the air. The judge's pen froze in her hand. Even the lawyer representing Amelia looked pale. On the video, Amelia laughed again, then added, Rebecca was so stupid to trust her. I wish the accident happened sooner. At least now, I can finally get what's mine. My hands trembled as I held the phone. The words echoed in my head like thunder. Amelia wasn't just greedy. She was cruel enough to mock her own mother's death. The courtroom erupted. People whispered loudly, some covering their mouths in shock. The judge banged her gavel. Order. Order in the court. Francis shot up from his seat. His smooth charm cracked and his face turned red. That's a lie. That video is fake, he shouted. His voice shook, and for the first time he looked rattled. But Amelia, she didn't move. She sat frozen, her face pale, her lips pressed tightly together. For all her bravado, the mask was slipping. The judge adjusted her glasses and looked straight at me. Mrs. Brown, do you have proof of when and how this video was taken? I nodded. Yes, Your Honor. I recorded it last night myself. Outside my home. They didn't know I was near. My words fell heavy in the air. The judge turned to Amelia. Miss Brown, is this your voice? For the first time, Amelia stammered. I don't. Her voice broke. She looked at Francis, who grabbed her arm under the table. The judge narrowed her eyes. Miss Brown, answer the question. The tension in the room was unbearable. I could feel sweat trickling down my back, but my heart felt stronger than it had in years. For once, Amelia was cornered. But then, before she could answer, something shocking happened. Francis stood, slammed his hand on the table, and shouted, This trial is over. She doesn't deserve a penny. The courtroom gasped again. Even the judge's face hardened. And in that moment, I realized Francis wasn't just Amelia's advisor. He had his own dark reasons for wanting my daughter's inheritance. Francis's shout echoed off the courtroom walls. His hand was still flat on the wooden table, his face red and twisted with anger. Everyone froze, staring at him. Even Amelia looked startled. She pulled her arm away, whispering, Francis, what are you doing? The judge slammed her gavel. Mr. Willand, sit down immediately. But Francis didn't sit. He puffed out his chest and sneered at me, then turned toward the judge. This woman doesn't deserve to be here. She's nothing but a manipulator. She poisoned Rebecca's mind, and now she's poisoning Amelia's too. I felt my knees weaken, but I gripped my cane tightly. His words stung, but the way he spit out Rebecca's name told me something important. He wasn't just a stranger hovering around my daughter's death. He knew her better than he should have. The judge leaned forward, her face hard. Mr. Willand, you are not the one on trial here. Sit down or I'll hold you in contempt. Reluctantly, Francis lowered himself into his chair, but the look in his eyes was dangerous. He wasn't scared of the judge. He wasn't scared of anyone. That frightened me more than his outburst. The hearing continued, but the tension in the room was thick. Amelia refused to look at me. Francis kept whispering to her, his hand resting possessively on her shoulder like he owned her. For the rest of that day, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Francis than greed. The way he talked about Rebecca made my stomach twist. And deep down I knew I was missing a piece of the puzzle. When court adjourned, I walked slowly out of the building. The reporters waiting outside swarmed toward us, flashing cameras in my face. "Mrs. Brown, is it true your granddaughter called you a hag? Do you have more videos, Mrs. Brown? Amelia, do you really want your grandmother homeless?" The noise was overwhelming. Amelia shoved past them with Francis, her jaw clenched. She didn't answer a single question. I could hear one of the reporters muttering as she pushed by. "Cold as ice. Just like her mother." That comment stopped me in my tracks. Just like her mother. Rebecca had been many things, reckless, impulsive, even selfish sometimes, but she wasn't cold. She wasn't cruel. And she would never, ever have sided with a man like Francis. That night, I sat alone in my house, staring at the walls filled with family photos. Rebecca in her prom dress. Rebecca holding newborn Amelia. Rebecca smiling on a beach trip. Memories stabbed me like sharp knives. "Why, Lord?" I whispered, rocking in my chair. "Why is this happening?" The house creaked with loneliness. But in the silence, I remembered something important. The night before the hearing, when I had followed Francis and Amelia, I hadn't only recorded that cruel video. I had seen something else. I had seen Francis hand Amelia a sealed envelope. She opened it, glanced inside, and her face lit up like she had struck gold. What was in that envelope? The next morning I made a decision. If Francis was hiding something, I was going to find it. I may be 74, but I'm not helpless. I've lived long enough to know that evil men hide their tracks, but no one hides them perfectly. The following week, before the next court date, I asked a favor from my neighbor Tom. He's a retired police officer with a sharp eye and a good heart. "Tom," I said, sitting at his kitchen table with a cup of coffee, "I need your help. Francis Willand is not who he says he is. He's after my daughter's money, and he's dragging Amelia down with him." Tom frowned. "I've seen his type before. Smooth talker. Never trust a man who smiles too much but doesn't let his eyes smile with him." I nodded. "Can you check into his past?" Quietly. "I have a feeling Rebecca didn't just know him casually. And if there's proof, it might save Amelia from him." Tom leaned back. "I'll see what I can dig up." Days passed like heavy clouds. The trial loomed closer, and Amelia refused to answer my calls. When I tried to visit her, Francis was always there, guarding her like a hawk. Then one evening Tom knocked on my door with a folder under his arm. His face was serious. "You were right, Margaret," he said, laying the folder on the table. "Francis Willand isn't just some businessman. He's been married 3 times. Each wife came into money, and each one died under strange circumstances." My blood ran cold. "You mean?" Tom nodded. "Insurance payouts. Quiet settlements. Always just enough evidence to raise suspicion, but never enough to convict him. He's a predator, Margaret. And your daughter, Rebecca, was likely his next target." I clutched the table, my body shaking. "Are you saying Francis had something to do with Rebecca's death?" Tom didn't answer right away. He slid a photo across the table. It was Rebecca, standing with Francis, her arm around his waist. My stomach lurched. "Where did you get this?" I whispered. "Public records," Tom said. "They were seen together months before she died. He was more than just a friend. And if I had to guess, Amelia doesn't know the full truth. He's using her grief to get his hands on what's left." I covered my mouth with both hands, tears filling my eyes. My poor Rebecca. She had trusted the wrong man, and it may have cost her life. The next court session I sat with that folder in my purse. My hand shook, but my resolve was stronger than ever. I knew I had to reveal Francis for what he was. But the devil is always one step ahead. As I prepared to rise and show the judge what I had discovered, Francis suddenly pulled out a document from his briefcase. He stood tall, smiling as if he had been waiting for this moment all along. "Your Honor," he said smoothly, "before my client responds, I'd like to present this." He handed the papers to the clerk, who passed them to the judge. The judge's eyes scanned the pages. She looked up at me with shock. "Mrs. Brown," she said slowly, This appears to be a signed will from your daughter, Rebecca, and it names Mr. Francis Willand as the sole executor of her estate. The room exploded in whispers. My vision blurred. A will. My Rebecca's will naming him? I shook my head violently. That's a lie. That can't be real. Rebecca would never. Francis turned toward me, his smile sharp as a knife. Oh, but it is real, Margaret. And soon you'll have nothing. The judge banged her gavel for silence, but I barely heard it. My heart hammered in my chest as the walls seemed to close in. I had come prepared to expose Francis. But now he had struck first and struck hard. And deep down I knew, if I couldn't prove that will was fake, I was about to lose everything. The courtroom buzzed like a hive of angry bees. The judge banged her gavel again and again, but the whispers wouldn't die down. A will. Rebecca's will. And in it Francis, of all people, was the executor? My hands trembled on my cane. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But most of all, I wanted to tear that smug smile off Francis's face. That is not my daughter's handwriting, I finally said, my voice cracking but firm. Rebecca would never put you in charge of her life, let alone her death. Francis chuckled, low and smug. Grief makes people say foolish things, Margaret. The will is notarized. It's legal. The judge looked down at the document again. Her face gave nothing away. We will examine its authenticity. For now, this will be entered into evidence. My knees nearly buckled. Entered into evidence. That meant the court was taking it seriously. I glanced at Amelia. For the first time since the trial began, her confidence wavered. She looked between me and Francis, her eyes darting like a trapped bird. But she didn't speak. She didn't defend me. She just sat there in silence while the man who ruined her mother's life twisted the knife deeper. When court adjourned, I shuffled toward the exit, the weight of years pressing on my shoulders. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, but I barely heard them. All I could hear was Francis's laughter echoing in my ears. Outside, Tom was waiting for me. His face was pale, his jaw tight. I saw it, he muttered. That will is a forgery, Margaret. It has to be, but proving it won't be easy. I clutched his arm. Then we prove it. Whatever it takes. I won't let that man take Rebecca's memory and destroy Amelia's future. Tom nodded grimly. We'll need an expert. Someone who can analyze the handwriting. And fast. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the house sounded like a warning. My daughter's face haunted me in my dreams, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw Francis's grin. By morning, I had made up my mind. I dug through old drawers, boxes of Rebecca's schoolwork, letters she had written me, birthday cards she had signed. Every piece of handwriting I could find, I stuffed into a bag. When I arrived at Tom's the next day, he introduced me to a man with glasses and ink-stained fingers. This is Mr. Harris, Tom said. He's one of the best forensic handwriting experts in the state. Mr. Harris adjusted his glasses and smiled kindly at me. Don't worry, ma'am. If that will is fake, I'll find out. He reached for the bag, and I handed it over, my heart pounding. But just as he began to spread the papers across the table, Tom's phone rang. He answered, and his face went pale. When he hung up, his voice shook. Margaret. Francis is already one step ahead. He's filed for immediate possession of your house. When Tom's words hit me, it felt like the floor vanished beneath my feet. Immediate possession of my house? I whispered. My voice came out hollow, almost as if it belonged to someone else. Tom nodded grimly. He's claiming that because he's named executor in Rebecca's will, he has a right to take control of all property until the estate is settled. It's dirty, Margaret. Real dirty. But Francis is clever, and he's banking on the court moving faster than we can. My hands shook as I clutched the edge of the table. My house wasn't just a building. It was the place where I raised Rebecca, where I taught Amelia how to bake cookies, where my late husband's laughter still seemed to linger in the walls. Every memory of my life was inside those rooms. If Francis took it, he wouldn't just be stealing bricks and wood. He would be stealing my soul. No. I said, my voice rising. No. He can't have it. He already took Rebecca. He won't take this too. Mr. Harris, the handwriting expert, glanced at me with gentle eyes. Mrs. Brown, I'll work quickly. But you must prepare yourself. Cases like this can drag on. The courts don't move as fast as greed. I sank into the chair, my head in my hands. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Then Tom placed a firm hand on my shoulder. Margaret, you've fought too long to give up now. We'll find a way to prove that will is forged. But you need to be ready for war. Francis doesn't play fair. That night, I returned home to find an envelope stuffed under my front door. My stomach dropped when I saw it. The paper was crisp, the handwriting neat, too neat. I pulled it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper with only 4 words written on it. Enjoy your last night. My knees buckled, and I clutched the doorframe to keep from falling. My chest pounded. Was it a threat? A warning? Or just Francis's cruel way of breaking me down? I locked every window, every door, and sat awake with the lights on until dawn. Sleep never came. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. Every shadow on the wall seemed to move. By morning I was exhausted, but more determined than ever. I gathered all of Rebecca's old letters, journals, and documents and drove straight to Mr. Harris's office. He worked for hours, examining the supposed will side by side with Rebecca's real handwriting. His magnifying glass moved slowly, his pen scratching notes across the paper. Finally, he leaned back and let out a breath. I can't give you my full report yet, but I'll say this much. There are inconsistencies. Letters shaped differently. Strokes that don't match her style. I strongly suspect forgery. Relief surged through me, hot and shaky. But before I could even speak, Tom burst into the office, his face red. Margaret, we have a problem. A big one. My heart skipped. What now? Tom thrust a newspaper down in front of me. The headline screamed. Local grandmother accused of stealing millions, granddaughter speaks out. I froze. Amelia's picture filled the page. She was staring straight into the camera, her lips pressed together, her eyes hard. The article quoted her. My grandmother betrayed my mother and me. She stole what belongs to me, and now she's trying to make me look like a monster. I just want justice. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. My own granddaughter, twisting the knife deeper for the world to see. The article went on to paint me as greedy, desperate, clinging to money I didn't earn. And worst of all, it praised Francis as the man bravely fighting for Amelia's rights. The world was turning against me. I slammed the paper down. That man has poisoned her. He's feeding her lies. She was my baby once, Tom. I rocked her to sleep. I held her when she scraped her knees. And now she looks at me like I'm the enemy. Tom's voice was low, steady. Margaret, she's young. She's grieving. She's easy to manipulate. Right now, she believes Francis is her savior. But if we expose him, she may see the truth. I wiped my eyes, forcing myself to sit up straighter. Then that's what we'll do. No matter what it takes. The following court date arrived sooner than I was ready for. I walked into that building feeling like the walls themselves were closing in. Reporters lined the steps, shouting questions. Mrs. Brown, are you afraid of losing everything? Mrs. Brown, why would your own granddaughter lie? Mrs. Brown, is Francis Willand really your daughter's secret lover? That last question hit me like ice water. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because deep inside, I feared it might be true. Inside the courtroom, Francis looked untouchable. His suit was sharp, his hair perfectly combed. Amelia sat beside him, her expression stony. She didn't look at me once. The judge entered. The trial resumed. And then Francis struck again. Your Honor, he said smoothly, given the delays in confirming the will's authenticity, and my client's rightful inheritance, we request immediate transfer of Mrs. Brown's property to temporary custodianship under my name. For safekeeping, of course. The words made bile rise in my throat. Safekeeping. He meant theft. He meant stripping me of the last thing I had. The judge frowned. This is highly unusual, Mr. Willand. Francis smiled. Unusual, yes. But necessary. Mrs. Brown has already shown she is reckless. She hides evidence, manipulates recordings, and now seeks to drag this trial out while the estate suffers. I shot to my feet. Cane rattling against the floor. That is a lie. He's twisting everything. He is the thief, not me. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The judge banged her gavel. Order. But before I could say more, Francis calmly reached into his briefcase and pulled out another envelope. My stomach dropped. Another trick. This, he said, holding it up, is a sworn affidavit from a witness who saw Mrs. Brown withdrawing funds from her daughter's account days after her death. Would Your Honor like me to read it aloud? The judge nodded. Proceed. Francis cleared his throat, his voice silky. The witness testifies that Margaret Brown entered the bank, demanded a withdrawal of $50,000, and claimed it was hers by right. This money has never been accounted for. My jaw dropped. I couldn't breathe.
$52,000?
That never happened. But now the court believed it had. I felt the room spin. The judge's expression darkened. Amelia finally turned her eyes toward me, and in them I saw something that broke my heart. Not hate. Not anger. Disappointment. She believed him. I wanted to scream to tear the lies apart. But my throat closed. My chest burned. And then in front of everyone I felt the world tilt. My cane slipped from my hand. My knees gave way. The last thing I heard before everything went black was Amelia's voice, sharp and panicked, crying out, "Grandma!" When I opened my eyes, the bright hospital lights nearly blinded me. My chest felt heavy, my throat dry, and my arms ached from where wires and tubes clung to me. For a moment I didn't remember where I was. Then it all came rushing back. The courtroom, Francis's lies, Amelia's eyes full of disappointment. My heart squeezed painfully. Grandma! I turned my head slowly. Amelia was there, sitting by my bedside. Her eyes were swollen, her cheeks damp with tears. For the first time in months, she looked like my little girl again. Not the cold stranger Francis had molded her into. Grandma, I thought you were. I thought I'd lost you too, she whispered, her voice breaking. Tears stung my own eyes. I reached for her hand, frail but steady. Oh, Amelia, I'm still here. But you must see it now. Francis is not what he seems. Her lip trembled. She shook her head, torn between love and fear. He says you're lying. He says you're trying to keep me from what Mom wanted me to have. But Grandma, I don't know what to believe anymore. Her words cut deeper than any knife. She was caught in the middle, between my truth and Francis's poison. Just then the door creaked open. Tom stepped inside, carrying a folder under his arm. His face was grim, his eyes set like steel. Margaret, he said quietly, we've got him. Proof. Real proof. Amelia looked up sharply. Proof of what? Tom placed the folder on the bed and opened it, spreading out papers and photographs. Proof that Francis isn't just after money. He's dangerous. And if we don't stop him soon, you won't just lose your inheritance, you might lose your life. The room went silent. Amelia's hand slipped from mine, her face pale as she stared at the evidence. What do you mean? She whispered. Tom's jaw tightened. I mean, Rebecca's death wasn't an accident. And Francis was with her the night she died. The air left my lungs. Amelia gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. And before I could speak, the hospital door creaked open again, revealing Francis standing there, smiling like a wolf. Francis stood in the doorway like a shadow given flesh. His suit was immaculate, his silver hair slicked back, and his smile stretched too wide, like a mask glued onto a predator's face. Well, he said smoothly, his voice echoing in the small hospital room. Isn't this cozy? The grieving grandmother, the rebellious granddaughter, and the loyal little watchdog with his folder of lies. Tom immediately stepped forward, his body blocking Francis's view of me. You shouldn't be here, he growled. This is a private room. Get out before I call security. Francis chuckled, low and mocking. Security? Do you really think anyone will believe you over me? I'm the executor of Rebecca's estate. I have every right to check on Amelia. She's under my care. The words made my stomach twist. Under his care. That was exactly what terrified me. Amelia, Francis said, his gaze sliding past Tom to my granddaughter. Don't let them fill your head with nonsense. You know I've always looked out for you. Your grandmother is weak. And this man, he flicked his eyes at Tom, is nothing but a bitter old fool. They're trying to steal what your mother left you. Amelia's face was pale, her eyes darting between us. I could see the war inside her tearing her in two. She wanted to believe me, but Francis had her wrapped so tightly in his lies, she couldn't see the truth clearly. "Francis," I croaked, my voice weak but steady. "You were with Rebecca the night she died, weren't you?" The smile froze on his face just for a split second. Then it returned colder this time. "Careful, Margaret," he said softly. "Grief can make people imagine terrible things. Don't let it destroy what's left of your mind." Tom slammed his hand on the folder, his voice sharp. "We have proof, Francis. Photos, witness statements, records. The police may have missed it before, but not this time. You're finished." Francis's eyes darkened. He took a slow step into the room. The temperature seemed to drop with him. "Proof?" he sneered. "You think a few papers will scare me? You don't know who you're dealing with. I've buried bigger threats than you." Amelia flinched at his words. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but no sound came out. "Grandma," she whispered finally, her voice trembling. "Is it true? Was he really with Mom?" I reached out, my hand shaking but firm. "Yes, Amelia. He charmed her, used her, and when she was no longer useful, he made sure she was gone. Don't you see? He's doing the same to you now." For a heartbeat, silence hung in the room. Amelia's eyes filled with tears. Her hand hovered near mine like she wanted to take it, but Francis moved faster. He grabbed her arm, pulling her to his side. "Don't listen to her. She's delusional. She wants to turn you against me because she knows she's lost." "Let me go," Amelia cried, struggling against his grip. Tom lunged forward, his voice thundering. "Get your hands off her." For a split second, chaos erupted. Tom tried to pull Amelia free. I shouted for help, and Francis tightened his grip, his mask finally slipping to reveal the monster beneath. His eyes blazed with fury. The door burst open as a nurse rushed in, alarmed by the noise. "What on earth is going on here?" she demanded. Francis immediately loosened his hold, switching back to his calm, charming act. "Apologies," he said smoothly. "A simple misunderstanding. My niece is just emotional, that's all." "Niece?" I spat, my voice shaking with rage. "You liar. She's not your niece, she's my granddaughter, and you're poisoning her against her own family." The nurse frowned, clearly unsure of what to believe. Tom stepped in quickly, his voice steady. "Call security. Now." But Francis wasn't finished. He straightened his suit, smoothed his tie, and leaned close enough for only me to hear. His breath was hot, his words like venom. "You think a folder of papers will save you, Margaret? I have friends in places you can't even imagine. If you push me, I won't just take your house. I'll take everything. And when I'm done, no one will even remember you existed." I shivered, my heart pounding in my chest. His threat wasn't empty. I could feel the truth of it in his voice. Security finally arrived, and after a heated exchange, Francis was escorted out. But the damage was done. His shadow lingered in the room, dark and suffocating. Amelia sat on the edge of my bed, trembling. She wouldn't look at me, wouldn't look at Tom. Her hands twisted together nervously. "Grandma," she whispered. "I don't know what to believe anymore. Everything feels twisted. I just want Mom back. I just want things to be simple." I squeezed her hand, tears blurring my vision. "I know, my love. But you have to be strong now. Your mother isn't here to protect you anymore. That's why I'm fighting. To save you from him." Tom placed the folder in Amelia's lap. "Read it. All of it. Then decide who's telling the truth." She stared at the papers as if they were made of fire. Slowly she nodded. "Okay, I'll read." For the first time, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Amelia was starting to see through his lies. Maybe, just maybe, I could save her. But hope is fragile. That night, long after Amelia had left the hospital with the folder in her hands, Tom returned with a grim look on his face. "There's something else, Margaret," he said quietly. "Something I didn't want to tell you until I was sure. But now you need to know." My stomach tightened. "What is it?" Tom lowered his voice, leaning close. "Francis doesn't just want your house or the inheritance. He's deeper in debt than we thought. Dangerous people are after him. And he's planning to use Amelia, not just her money, to buy his way out." I gasped, covering my mouth. My blood ran cold. Before I could respond, the hospital window rattled behind me. I turned, my heart stopping. There, pressed against the glass 7 floors up, was a figure. Francis. His face was twisted with fury, his hand flat against the glass, his eyes burning into mine. And then he smiled. For a heartbeat, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. 7 floors up, no balcony, no ledge wide enough for a man to stand on. Yet there he was. Francis. His face pressed against the glass, his hand flat, his smile wide and menacing. I gasped, clutching my blanket. Tom! Tom, he's there. Tom spun around, eyes narrowing. But when he looked at the window, Francis was gone. The glass reflected only the glow of the city outside. No sado. No figure. Nothing. Margaret, Tom said gently, though I could hear the tension in his voice. You're exhausted. Maybe you imagined. I did not imagine it. I snapped, my voice trembling with fear. He was there, smiling at me like the devil himself. Before Tom could reply, the door burst open and Amelia rushed in, clutching the folder of evidence against Francis. Her face was pale, her breathing heavy. Grandma, she whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. I read it. All of it. Oh God, you were right. He's a monster. He used Mom, and now he's trying to use me. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She dropped the folder onto the bed, papers spilling everywhere. I didn't want to believe it, but it's all there. The debts, the marriages, the deaths. He's done this before. Relief surged through me, hot and shaky. At last, Amelia saw the truth. Tom leaned forward. Amelia, listen carefully. He won't let go easily. He'll come after you now that you know. You need to stay somewhere safe. She nodded, her lips trembling. I'm scared, Tom. What if he finds me? I took her hands in mine, squeezing tight. He won't win, Amelia. Not this time. We'll fight him together. But even as I said the words, dread coiled in my stomach. Francis was like a snake, slippery, patient, deadly. And snakes always strike when you least expect it. Just then, the lights in the hospital flickered. Once. Twice. Then darkness swallowed the room. Amelia screamed. Machines beeped and wailed. My heart pounded. In the pitch black, I heard its slow, deliberate footsteps coming down the hall. Closer. Closer. And then a voice, low and cold, carried through the silence. You can't hide from me, Margaret. The hospital plunged into darkness, and the beeping of the machines became the only sound anchoring me to reality. My heart thudded wildly in my chest. Amelia clutched my hand so tightly, her nails dug into my skin. Tom moved closer to the door, his body tense, ready to shield us. Then we heard it. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, echoing down the hallway like a predator taking its time before the kill. Closer. Closer. And then the voice. Low, steady, venom dripping from every syllable. You can't hide from me, Margaret. I froze, every muscle in my body tightening. Amelia's breath came in short, sharp gasps. Grandma, he's here, she whispered, panic trembling in her voice. Tom pressed a finger to his lips, signaling us to stay quiet. He reached into his coat, pulling out the small flashlight he always carried. With a click, a thin beam of light cut through the darkness, sweeping across the room. Empty. But the footsteps didn't stop. They grew louder, closer, until they seemed right outside the door. Bang! The door rattled violently, as if someone had thrown their weight against it. Amelia screamed, burying her face into my shoulder. Stay calm, Tom said firmly, though I could hear the strain in his voice. He positioned himself in front of the door, gripping the flashlight like a weapon. He's trying to scare us. That's all. But I knew Francis too well. He wasn't just trying to scare us. He was hunting us. The banging stopped. Silence stretched thick and suffocating. Then another sound. A scratching like metal against metal. He's picking the lock, I whispered, my blood running cold. Tom cursed under his breath. Not on my watch. He pulled out his phone, but the screen was dead. No signal, no light. The blackout had cut everything. Panic clawed at my chest. We were trapped. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the footsteps retreated, fading down the hall until there was nothing but silence again. Amelia lifted her head, her voice shaking. Did he leave? Tom didn't answer right away. He pressed his ear against the door, listening. Finally he exhaled. Maybe. But don't let your guard down. This is Francis we're talking about. He doesn't give up. The emergency lights flickered back to life, bathing the hallway in a dull red glow. The machine steadied, humming softly again. Relief washed over me, but it was thin, fragile. Amelia pulled away, pacing the room. I can't do this anymore, Grandma. I can't keep living like this. Looking over my shoulder, waiting for him to strike. What if he kills me too? Her words sliced through me. My sweet granddaughter, trembling and broken, trapped in a nightmare she didn't deserve. I grabbed her hand. You listen to me, Amelia. Your mother wouldn't want you to live in fear. She would want you to fight. That man has stolen too much from us already. We can't let him take you too. Tears streamed down her face. But how? He's everywhere, Grandma. He knows everything. Tom spoke up, his voice steady. Not everything. We have his weaknesses now. The debts, the evidence, the connections to Rebecca's death. If we get this to the right people, he won't be able to touch you. Amelia nodded slowly, wiping her tears. For the first time I saw a spark of determination in her eyes. But deep down, I knew Francis wouldn't go down quietly. The next morning, the hospital released me into Tom's care. Amelia insisted on staying with us, too afraid to return home. We drove through the quiet streets, every shadow on the sidewalk making my heart jump. When we finally reached my house, it felt both safe and unsafe at once. The familiar walls wrapped around me like an old blanket, but Francis's presence lingered, like smoke after a fire. That night, we gathered in the living room. Tom spread the folder across the table, laying out the photos, the receipts, the witness statements. Amelia leaned over them, her face pale but determined. Look at this, Tom said, pointing to a document. A bank transfer from Rebecca's account to Francis's, just 2 days before her death. She drained her savings for him. Amelia gasped. She must have thought he loved her. He never loved her, I said bitterly. He only loved what she could give him. Tom flipped to another paper. And here, reports from a neighbor. They saw Francis leaving Rebecca's house late that night, hours before she was found. Amelia's hands trembled as she traced the words with her fingers. So he really was there. Yes, I said, my voice breaking. And I fear he made sure your mother would never stand in his way. Silence filled the room, heavy with grief. Amelia's shoulders shook as she cried quietly, and I reached out, pulling her into my arms. It's not your fault, my love. None of this is your fault. But just as I spoke those words, a loud thud echoed from the porch. We froze. Another thud, then the creak of footsteps on the wooden boards outside. Tom grabbed the flashlight again, motioning for us to stay quiet. He crept toward the window, peering through the curtain. His face went pale. It's him, he whispered. Amelia's hand clamped onto mine. What do we do? She mouthed. Before I could answer, a voice carried through the night, muffled but chilling. You can't hide from me forever, Margaret. The house, the girl, everything, soon it will all be mine. The doorknob rattled violently. Amelia screamed. I clutched her close, my heart hammering. Tom braced himself by the door, ready to fight if Francis broke through. And then silence. We waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. Finally, Tom cracked the door open just a fraction, shining the flashlight onto the porch. Empty. No Francis. No footsteps. Nothing. But lying on the welcome mat was an envelope. Thick. Stained. Tom bent down and picked it up. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a single photograph, Rebecca, my daughter, taken the night before she died. And scrawled across it in red ink were 4 words. You're next, Margaret. My knees buckled. Tom caught me before I fell, his face ashen. Amelia's scream pierced the night, raw and terrified. The room spun around me. The threat wasn't just a shadow anymore. It was real, written in Francis's own hand. And deep down I knew this was only the beginning. The photograph slipped from Tom's hand and fluttered onto the coffee table, the red words staring up at us like blood on paper. You're next, Margaret. Amelia clung to me, her whole body trembling. Grandma. He knows where we are. He's watching us. Tom picked up the photo again, studying it under the flashlight's beam. His jaw tightened, his voice low. This wasn't left here hours ago. The ink's still wet. He was just here. I felt my heart squeeze painfully. So he's playing games with us now. He wants us scared, broken. Tom shook his head. No. This is more than a game. This is a warning. And a promise. He's escalating. The house suddenly felt smaller, its walls closing in on us. Every creak of the floorboards, every groan of the pipes made me jump. Francis wasn't inside, but his shadow filled every corner. Amelia pulled away from me, tears streaking her cheeks. We have to go to the police, Tom. Now. We can't stay here another night. I've already tried that, Tom muttered, tossing the photo back on the table. Francis has friends in the system. The last time I reported him, the file disappeared. This isn't something the police will solve. Then what do we do? I asked, my voice breaking. Sit here and wait for him to come through the door? For a long moment, silence pressed heavy between us. Then Tom's eyes hardened, a fire sparking behind them. No. We fight back. Amelia looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Fight back? Against Francis? He's dangerous. He killed Mom. Yes, Tom said sharply. And if we don't stop him, he'll kill again. He'll take everything. But we have something he doesn't, truth. Proof. And if we can get that evidence into the right hands, the ones even he can't buy, we can end this. His words lit a fragile flame of hope in me. But before I could answer, another sound shattered the night. Glass. Shattering. It came from the back of the house. Amelia screamed again, and my heart nearly stopped. Tom grabbed the flashlight and bolted toward the kitchen. Stay here, he barked. But I couldn't stay. I rose to my feet, leaning on Amelia for support, my whole body trembling. The sound of footsteps echoed through the back hall, fast, heavy, closing in. Tom's voice roared from the kitchen. He's inside. Get out now. The lights flickered, plunging us into darkness again. And in that suffocating black, a voice whispered, chilling and close, so close I could feel his breath on my ear. Didn't I tell you, Margaret? You're next. That whisper froze my blood. It was so close, so intimate, I could almost feel Francis's lips brushing my ear. I spun around wildly, but the darkness swallowed everything. Amelia clung to my arm, trembling so hard I thought her bones might shake apart. Grandma, she whispered, her voice cracking. He's in the house. He's in here with us. Tom's flashlight beam suddenly cut through the blackness, darting back and forth as he stormed in from the kitchen. His face was hard, grim. Margaret, Amelia, move. Now. He herded us toward the front door, his arm outstretched like a shield. My heart hammered in my chest. Every step felt like it might be my last. Behind us, floorboards creaked. Deliberate, taunting. Francis wasn't hiding anymore. He wanted us to know he was here. We reached the door, but as Tom twisted the knob, it didn't budge. Locked. Jammed from the outside. Tom cursed under his breath and tried again, yanking with all his strength. Nothing. Back door, he barked, spinning us toward the kitchen again. Move fast. We stumbled after him, Amelia clinging to my hand so tightly it hurt. The flashlight flickered over walls and furniture, making twisted shadows dance across the room. My ears strained for the sound of footsteps. They came. Slow, steady, mocking. Somewhere behind us. Francis was following, matching our pace, letting us know there was no escape. When we reached the kitchen, the window above the sink was shattered, glass glittering on the floor like shards of ice. A cold wind rushed through, making the curtains whip violently. That's how he got in, Tom muttered, scanning the room. He shoved Amelia toward the back door. Go. But the moment he unlocked it, the door swung inward on its own. Francis stood there. His tall frame filled the doorway, the dull red glow from the street lamp casting his face in shadow. But his smile gleamed, white and sharp. Going somewhere? He asked softly. Amelia screamed, stumbling backward into me. My heart stopped. There he was, the man who had stolen my daughter, who was now trying to destroy what little I had left. Tom shoved us behind him, flashlight raised like a weapon. Stay back, Francis. Francis laughed, low and cruel. What are you going to do, Tom? Blind me with that toy light? You've never had the spine to face me. Tom's jaw clenched, his voice steady. I've got enough spine to stop you from hurting them. Francis stepped inside, his eyes glinting. You can't stop me. Not you, not Margaret, not anyone. This house, this girl, this inheritance, it's mine. It's always been mine. I felt rage surge through me, burning hotter than fear. You murdered my daughter. I spat, my voice shaking. You used her and threw her away when she was no longer useful. And now you're trying to do the same to Amelia. Francis's smile widened, chilling me to the bone. Your daughter was weak. Just like you. But Amelia? Amelia has potential. She's young, beautiful, and very persuadable. Unlike her grandmother. Amelia sobbed, her voice breaking. You're a monster. For a moment, Francis's mask cracked. His smile twisted into a snarl, his eyes blazing. He lunged forward, but Tom swung the flashlight hard, catching him across the face. Francis staggered back, growling like an animal. Run! Tom shouted. I grabbed Amelia's hand, pulling her toward the stairs. We scrambled up, my old legs screaming in protest, but fear gave me strength I didn't know I had. Behind us, Francis roared. The crash of furniture shattering followed. Then his footsteps pounded after us, relentless. We reached my bedroom, slamming the door shut. Tom wedged a chair under the knob, his face pale but determined. Amelia collapsed onto the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. Grandma, what are we going to do? He won't stop, he'll kill us. I took her face in my hands, forcing her to look at me. Listen to me, Amelia. We're stronger than him. He wants us scared, but fear is his weapon. If we stand together, he can't win. Do you understand? She sniffled, nodding through tears. Yes, Grandma. The pounding started then. Francis's fist slammed against the bedroom door, over and over, making the wood splinter. Each hit shook the room. Margaret, he bellowed, his voice furious now. Open this door, or I'll tear it off its hinges. You can't run from me forever. Tom positioned himself near the window, pulling out his phone. This time there was a faint signal. He quickly dialed, speaking in a hushed, urgent tone. This is Tom Baker, private investigator. Emergency at 47 Maple Drive. Send police now. Francis laughed from the other side of the door. Call whoever you like, Tom. By the time they get here, she'll be gone. And Amelia will be mine. The sound of splintering wood grew louder. The chair wedged under the knob trembled with each blow. It wouldn't last long. I glanced at the window. It was a 2-story drop, but better than waiting to be slaughtered. Tom, we can climb out. He shook his head. Too dangerous. Margaret, you'd break every bone in your body. Before I could argue, the door cracked. A jagged split ran down the middle. Francis's hand burst through, grasping blindly. Amelia shrieked, backing away. Run, Grandma, she cried. Please. But I couldn't leave her. I wouldn't. Tom grabbed the nearest object, a lamp, and swung it hard at Francis's reaching hand. The scream that followed was guttural, animalistic. Francis yanked his hand back, the door trembling with his rage. You'll pay for that, he roared. The pounding resumed, harder than before. Tom turned to me, his face grim. We've bought a little time, but not much. When he gets through, we have one chance: get Amelia out that window, then follow her. Do you understand? I nodded, though fear gripped me like a vice. Amelia shook her head frantically. No, I'm not leaving you, Grandma. You will, I said firmly, my voice stronger than I felt. Because I'm not losing you too. Not to him. The door gave another violent crack, half the frame buckling. Francis's voice thundered through. You can't save her, Margaret. She belongs to me now. And then silence. The pounding stopped. For a few seconds the only sound was our heavy breathing. Amelia's sobs. The faint buzz of Tom's phone still in his hand. Then we heard it. A scraping sound. From above. The ceiling groaned. Plaster dust rained down. Tom's eyes widened. He's on the roof. I looked up, my heart stopping. The sound of heavy boots moving across the shingles echoed overhead. Then the window rattled violently, shaking in its frame. Francis's face appeared, twisted in fury, his eyes wild. He smashed his fist against the glass, cracks spiderwebbing across it. And with a final deafening blow, the window shattered inward, sending shards raining down into the room. Francis climbed through, blood dripping from his hand, his grin savage. "This ends tonight, Margaret," he hissed. Glass crunched under Francis's boots as he stepped into the bedroom, his grin wide and feral. Blood streaked his hand, dripping onto the floorboards, but he didn't flinch. His eyes locked on me like a predator cornering its prey. "This ends tonight, Margaret," he hissed. Amelia screamed, scrambling back onto the bed, her body pressed against the headboard. Tom raised the broken lamp like a weapon, his chest heaving, sweat shining on his forehead. "Stay behind me," Tom barked. Francis laughed, low and mocking. "You really think you can protect them? You couldn't protect Rebecca, and you won't protect her daughter either." The words stabbed me like knives. Rage boiled in my chest. "You destroyed Rebecca's life. But you won't touch Amelia. Not while I still breathe." Francis's eyes gleamed. "Then I'll just have to take your last breath from you." He lunged. The room exploded into chaos. Tom swung the lamp, smashing it across Francis's shoulder. The bulb shattered, sparks flying. Francis roared, stumbling but not falling. He lashed out, striking Tom hard across the face. Tom collapsed to the floor, groaning. Amelia shrieked. I grabbed the nearest thing I could reach, my heavy jewelry box, and hurled it with all my strength. It struck Francis square in the temple. He staggered again, blood dripping down his cheek. For a heartbeat, hope surged. Maybe, just maybe, we could overpower him. But Francis straightened, wiping the blood with a twisted smile. "You've got fight in you, old woman." "Good. I like it when they struggle." He advanced toward me, each step deliberate. I backed up, my legs shaking, until I hit the wall. "Grandma!" Amelia sobbed, sliding off the bed. She darted toward me, but Francis grabbed her arm, yanking her to his side. "No!" I screamed. Amelia cried out, struggling, kicking at him. Francis tightened his grip, dragging her toward the shattered window. "If you won't give her to me, Margaret, I'll take her myself." Tom groaned, pushing himself up from the floor. His voice was hoarse but fierce. "Let her go, Francis." Francis only laughed, one leg already stepping onto the broken sill. Amelia thrashed wildly, her eyes wide with terror. "Say goodbye, Margaret," Francis sneered, pulling her closer to the window's edge. "This is the last time you'll ever see her alive." My body trembled. My heart thundered. I had seconds, only seconds, to act. And then my eyes fell on the object lying near Tom's feet. The gun. The glint of metal caught my eye like lightning in a storm. A gun. It must have slipped from Tom's coat pocket during the struggle. He was reaching for it now, groaning, his body heavy with bruises, but he was too slow. Francis still had Amelia in his grip, her arms flailing as he dragged her closer to the shattered window. My heart stopped. If Francis got her out that window, she would be gone. Whether he planned to use her as leverage, or worse, end her life as he had Rebecca's. I didn't think. I moved. My old knees screamed as I dropped down, fingers clawing at the floorboards until I closed around the cold steel of the gun. My hand shook violently. I had never held a weapon in my life, not even my late husband's old hunting rifle. But now here I was, an old woman pointing a gun at the devil who had destroyed my daughter and now threatened to steal my granddaughter. "Let her go, Francis." My voice cracked but carried the weight of every ounce of rage and pain inside me. Francis froze, the smirk never leaving his bloodied face. Well, well," he drawled, his grip tightening on Amelia as she sobbed. "Look at you, Margaret. 69 years old, fragile as glass, and suddenly you think you're Annie Oakley." "Don't test me," I warned, though my hands trembled so badly I could barely keep the barrel steady. "I will shoot you if I have to." Francis chuckled, tilting his head as if he were examining me like a specimen. "No, you won't. You don't have it in you. You're too weak. You couldn't protect Rebecca, and you'll fail Amelia too. Pull that trigger, and the recoil will kill you faster than it kills me." Tears burned my eyes. My body shook. But then I looked at Amelia, her terrified face, her eyes wide and pleading, her small hands clawing against Francis's iron grip. And I remembered Rebecca, my beautiful daughter. Her laugh, her kindness, The way she used to hold Amelia when she was a baby. Francis had stolen her from me. I would not let him take Amelia too, I said. I growled, my voice trembling with fury. Let her go. Francis's grin faltered. For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. But instead of obeying, he pulled Amelia tighter against him, his body shielded behind hers. If you shoot, you'll hit her, he sneered. Go ahead, Margaret. Kill your precious granddaughter with your own hands. Amelia screamed, thrashing. Grandma, please. My hands shook harder. I couldn't risk hitting her. My heart pounded so loudly it drowned out every other sound. Tom staggered to his feet, his lips split and bleeding, his voice hoarse. Margaret, listen to me. Don't let him control you. Focus. You've got one clean shot. But where? My mind raced. Francis was clever, using Amelia as a shield. He knew I couldn't risk it. Then I saw it, his leg, barely exposed, his stance wide as he tried to keep Amelia restrained. Aiming lower, I could take him down without risking her. I adjusted my shaking aim. My finger brushed the trigger. Francis noticed. His grin twisted. You don't have the guts. A loud crack split the air. The gun fired. Francis roared in pain, his leg buckling beneath him. He stumbled, releasing Amelia just enough for her to break free. She scrambled across the floor to me, sobbing, clinging to my waist. Grandma, she cried. Francis fell hard against the bedpost, clutching his bleeding thigh. But even wounded, his eyes burned with pure hatred. You old witch, he snarled. I'll kill you for this. Tom lunged, tackling him before he could rise. The two men crashed into the dresser, knocking it over in a deafening boom. Clothes, drawers, and shattered wood exploded across the floor. Run, Margaret! Tom shouted between grunts. Get Amelia out. I clutched Amelia, pulling her toward the door, but she resisted, shaking her head. No, I can't leave Tom. He'll die. Listen to me, child. I snapped, dragging her. If we stay, we'll all die. Francis and Tom wrestled on the floor, fists flying, blood smearing the boards. Francis, even with his wound, was terrifyingly strong. He slammed Tom's head against the floor, again and again, until Tom's groans grew weaker. No! I screamed, raising the gun again. My hands trembled, my vision blurred with tears. But before I could fire, Francis shoved Tom aside and lunged at me. His hand clamped around my wrist, twisting violently. Pain shot through me as the gun clattered to the floor. You should have stayed out of this, Margaret, he hissed, his face inches from mine, his hot breath reeking of blood and fury. Now I'll make you watch while I finish what I started with Rebecca. Amelia screamed, clawing at him, kicking his side. Leave her alone. Francis shoved her so hard she crashed into the dresser, crying out in pain. My rage exploded. With every ounce of strength left in my frail body, I bit down hard on his arm. He held, jerking back, giving me just enough space to shove him away. Tom, bleeding and battered, staggered to his feet and tackled Francis once more. The gun lay between us all on the floor. Francis saw it too. His eyes locked on it, wild and desperate. We all dove at the same time. My fingers brushed the cold steel. Amelia's hand grabbed mine, helping me pull it closer. But Francis's hand clamped over mine, his strength crushing my bones. The three of us struggled, the gun trapped between us, the barrel swinging wildly. Let go. Francis roared. Grandma. Amelia sobbed. Tom groaned, crawling toward us, his hand outstretched. The gun went off. A deafening bang split the air. For a moment, silence. My ears rang. Smoke curled from the barrel. And then I saw it. Francis froze, his eyes wide, his mouth gaping. Blood bloomed across his chest, spreading fast. He staggered back, his hand clutching the wound. His eyes locked on mine, burning with fury even as his strength drained. You haven't won, he choked. This isn't over. Then his knees buckled, and he collapsed to the floor motionless. Amelia sobbed, throwing her arms around me. Tom crawled to my side, pale and shaking. For a long, agonizing moment, none of us moved. The house was silent except for Amelia's sobs and the pounding of my heart. Francis Willand, the man who had haunted my family, destroyed my daughter, and tried to steal my granddaughter. Lay still. But as I stared at his body, a cold shiver ran down my spine. Because even in death, I didn't believe he was finished. The silence in the room was heavy, broken only by Amelia's muffled sobs against my chest. My hand trembled as I stroked her hair, trying to calm her, though I could barely calm myself. My ears still rang from the gunshot, and the acrid smell of smoke and blood clung to the air. Francis lay sprawled on the floor, his lifeless eyes staring up at the cracked ceiling. For the first time in years he was silent. Still. But my heart refused to believe it. Monsters like him didn't just die and disappear. Is he gone? Amelia whispered, her voice shaking. Tom wiped the blood from his forehead, his face pale but determined. He crawled closer to the body, placing 2 fingers against Francis's neck. He waited, his expression tense. Then he shook his head. No pulse, he said. He's gone. Amelia let out a wail of relief, collapsing against me. I held her tighter, but my eyes stayed locked on Francis. The way his mouth was twisted in that final sneer, the way his hand still reached for the gun even in death, it unsettled me. Call the police, I whispered. My throat was dry. Tell them everything. No more hiding. No more fear. Tom nodded, pulling his phone from his pocket with shaky hands. But before he could dial, a sound made us all freeze. It was faint, almost too faint to hear. A gurgle. A rasp. We turned in unison. Francis's chest rose, shallow and ragged. Blood bubbled from his lips. His fingers twitched against the floorboards. His eyes, glazed but alive, rolled toward us. No, Amelia whimpered, her body trembling against me. I clutched her tighter, my heart pounding in my chest. The man we thought was dead was still clinging to life, like a nightmare refusing to end. Tom's voice shook, but he raised the phone higher. We need an ambulance. Now. Francis let out a low, wet chuckle, blood dribbling down his chin. His words were barely audible, but each one cut like a knife. This isn't finished. His head lolled to the side, his body convulsing. For a second, it seemed like he would rise again. But then he slumped, wheezing, his breaths rattling louder and faster. We stood frozen, watching. None of us dared to move, unsure if this was truly the end, or just the beginning of something worse. The flashing red and blue of sirens lit the walls a few minutes later, washing Francis's still-breathing body in cold, merciless light. But as the paramedics pushed past us, kneeling beside him, his lips curved into the faintest of smiles. And I knew with a bone-deep certainty that Francis Willen's story was not over. The flashing red and blue lights lit up the walls like a twisted carnival. Paramedics rushed in, their heavy boots thudding against the wooden floor. One knelt beside Francis, pressing gloved hands against his chest. Blood spread beneath him like ink in water, soaking into the floorboards. Gunshot wound to the chest, the medic said sharply. Weak pulse, he's still alive. Prep the stretcher. Let's move. Amelia clung to me, sobbing harder as they strapped Francis onto the gurney. He looked broken, ruined, yet his eyes flickered open for just a moment. Through cracked lips, he whispered words that sent ice down my spine. You'll never be free of me, Margaret. I flinched, holding Amelia tighter. Even at death's door, he still found ways to poison the air. Tom pressed his hand to my shoulder. We'll testify against him. He's finished. But as I watched them wheel Francis out the door, a gnawing dread took root inside me. Men like Francis didn't just die quietly. They crawled back from hell, dragging others with them. The days that followed blurred together. The police swarmed the house, snapping photos, bagging evidence, asking question after question. I gave my statement, my voice shaking as I relived every horrifying detail. Reporters camped outside, cameras flashing like lightning. Neighbors whispered behind closed curtains. Amelia could hardly sleep, jolting awake at every creak. Tom stayed with us, his presence steady, though the bruises on his face and ribs told their own story. Francis survived. The bullet had pierced his lung, but the doctors managed to keep him alive. He was transferred to a maximum security hospital ward, handcuffed to the bed. But survival meant only one thing: there would be a trial. And so, weeks later, I found myself back in court, sitting at the same table where Francis's greedy lawsuit had begun. The polished wooden benches, the stern-faced judge, the murmur of voices. It all felt surreal, like a nightmare I had walked into twice. FANCIS entered, shackled, escorted by guards. He wore a hospital gown under his prison uniform, his face pale but his eyes burning with the same venom as ever. When he turned his gaze toward me, a sick grin curled on his lips. The trial began. The prosecution painted FANCIS for what he was: a manipulator, an abuser, a thief, a man who had bled his own family dry and plotted to destroy the rest of us for money. They showed the video I had played earlier in court. The one where he whispered threats into my ear, calling me a useless old hag. But FANCIS's defense wasn't ordinary. He smirked as his lawyer twisted facts, painted him as the victim, and even tried to drag Rebecca's name through the mud. He claimed she'd been unstable, careless with her money, that she'd willingly given him everything. Amelia burst into tears at those words, and my blood boiled. When it was my turn to take the stand, I stood tall, though my legs trembled. "I am Margaret Collins," I said clearly. 69 years old, from Savannah, Georgia. I am a mother who lost her daughter to this man's cruelty, and a grandmother who nearly lost her granddaughter. FANCIS Willand is not a victim. He is a predator. And predators don't deserve freedom. FANCIS sneered. "You're just bitter because your daughter loved me more than she loved you." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. I steadied myself, my voice low but firm. "No. I'm bitter because you destroyed her. You took her trust and used it to ruin her life. And then you tried to do the same to Amelia. But you failed. Because this time I fought back." The judge called for order, but I noticed something in the jury's eyes, something powerful. They believed me. The trial dragged on for weeks, but the verdict finally came. Guilty. On all charges: fraud, theft, assault, attempted murder. Amelia squeezed my hand so tight my fingers ached, tears streaming down her cheeks. Tom let out a breath like he'd been holding it for months. FANCIS's face twisted into something between rage and disbelief. He lunged from his chair, shackles clanking, shouting obscenities. "You think this is over? You'll pay for this, Margaret. You'll all pay." Guards dragged him away, his voice echoing down the halls like the last growl of a cornered beast. But even as they pulled him from sight, his words clung to me. Months later, life slowly began to stitch itself back together. The house was repaired, though sometimes the shadows seemed darker than before. Amelia began therapy, learning to sleep without nightmares, though she still crept into my bed on stormy nights. Tom visited often. His bruises faded but his loyalty stronger than ever. And me? I learned something too. I learned that strength doesn't always look like muscles or guns. Sometimes strength looks like an old woman standing up to the monster who thought she was powerless. Sometimes it's the trembling hands that still manage to hold steady when it matters most. But most of all, I learned that family, the love we carry for one another, is stronger than any evil. That's what saved Amelia. That's what saved me. FANCIS was locked away for life, but his shadow never fully disappeared. At night, when the wind rattled the windows, I sometimes thought I could still hear his whisper. "This isn't over." And maybe it wasn't. But if he ever tried to rise again, I would be ready. Because I was no longer just a grandmother. I was a survivor. And to all of you listening, my dear friends, thank you for walking this journey with me. I hope you learned something from my story. That evil can wear a friendly face. That greed can live inside our very homes. But most importantly, that no matter how broken or powerless you feel, you can fight back. Never underestimate the strength inside you. Never give up when the odds are against you. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe, like, and click that notification button, because more incredible stories are coming your way. Now tell me, from which part of the country are you watching? I'd love to know. Because this story may be over, but we have many more journeys to share together. The end.